Welcome, everybody. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. So glad that you're here with us listening wherever you're tuning in from. This is Spirit Matters. My name is Dayal. I'm here with Kishore Chandra, the newly affianced Kishore Chandra, along with Chuta Gopi, all here holding it down live in New York City with our live virtual studio audience who tunes in. I was trying not to cough, I was going for it. Excuse me. Take two. Hi, welcome everybody. This is Spirit Matters, your daily Bucket Center podcast. We're live here in New York City. We love you guys. How's it going? We got a verse that I put in our chat that we said that we wanted to pick up from yesterday, so I just pulled it up. But before we get into that, how we doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here.
I'm also happy to be here. It's a good day.
Is today Akadashi? No. Yes?
Yes, today's
Okay.
Akashi.
I figured because I was putting together my Sherlock Holmes. Achuta's wearing T-lock, which means he probably gave class, which means it must be Akadashi. Okay, good to know. Good to know. All right, cool. Anything going on in our minds and hearts, or we just want to? I mean, yesterday I know that we had this verse that we were talking about a little bit. Kishore asked that beautiful question that somebody had asked him, like, "How do I know if this is my path, or how do I know what's my path, or how do you know?" And we were sharing a little bit, and at the end of it, I brought up this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, um, that says, "Devotion, direct experience of the Supreme, and detachment from other things. These three occur simultaneously for one who has taken shelter of that Supreme, in the same way that pleasure, nourishment, and relief from hunger come simultaneously and increasingly with each bite for a person engaged in eating." So it's kind of like this question, well, like, how do I know if I'm full? Or how do I know if I like this dish? Or how do I know if this is what I want to eat? You kind of, you just, you feel there's a relief from hunger, there's nourishment, it feels good. And in the same way, sometimes our spiritual life can be the same symptoms that we feel as a result of walking a path. We can use that as evidence or as little signals or signs, if something is right for us. And so we left off with that verse, and wanted to know if we wanted to continue that train of thought.
Yes, please. Yeah, I that verse was just it was so wonderful for many reasons, and one of them is it just kept reminding me about how we think about detachment, or how we talk about renunciation or think about renunciation. And I had started just before the pandemic hit. I've been having conversations with a friend, and we were talking about renunciation, and we were like, you know what? And I was saying, what if renunciation is more like Lord Shiva? The he's like, if you had a poster person for renunciation, it would be Lord Shiva. But with Lord Shiva, his renunciation is not anything he has to think about. He winds up telling his wife in one instance, he says, well, when we say Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, it's like that word Vasudev is the name of the Lord. It's also a state of consciousness. It's also an ethereal platform. And so he says, when I'm meditating and I'm saying this Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, my Lord sometimes calls me to perform service in this ethereal plane. And so I go there through this state of consciousness. So he's like, I'm not even present. And so I felt like this is kind of like this inner purport of this verse, you surrender. And then I'm like, what if renunciation is not so much about all the things we have to give up, and how it just simply falls by the wayside because we're so engaged in giving our hearts, we're so engaged in living the thing. And so I think, also with this question, how do I know? How do I know? At some points, a lot of people are like, I don't know when I fell in love, but you were just so engaged. You were just so interacting with this person. It happens. And then you're not sitting there constantly having to tell yourself, oh, don't look at other people, or like, like it becomes a natural part of who you are, and a natural expression of this relationship that you have with this other person.
Hmm.
And so it just becomes the thing. And so I think, I kind of like that, especially in looking at detachment, because, as I think bhakti yogis really talk about detachment a lot. Um, and then sometimes we can get so much detachment and detach your families, detach from everything. You don't need these worldly relationships and possessions and people and all this stuff. And there are very few things that will like set me off. It's like, don't say that to a tutor. You'll completely set her off. But if I view you as a friend and at some point you act or say like, yeah, but like friends come and go. They're not that important. If you call me disposable, I close up, I build the walls, and you might never know it, but we just won't ever talk again. And things will never, ever be the same. So whenever I heard about like these ideas of detachment, I was like, I had
Yeah.
problems with it.
We're gonna have these our next episodes of Achuta. She's just not gonna say anything. It's gonna be like 3 weeks are gonna go by. I'm just like, Achuta hasn't said anything, and her video is off. What happened, Kishore? What did you say? What happened when you spoke yesterday? Did you tell her she's disposable?
Yeah, so when I think about like detachment, sometimes I get the feeling that people are acting like people are disposable. And detachment
Mm,
it's like when you're engaged in something, somehow these other things, the externals, things that are not important, they just fall away. But it doesn't always have to mean our people or our connections or even sometimes the objects. The thing is, once we start engaging in the service with all our hearts,
mm,
Krishna starts to take care of the rest at all naturally. The hunger is satiated.
Hmm.
mm.
Kishore's stroking his chin.
Uh, well, I completely relate to what Achita said about detachment, in terms of when we treat people or even things like they're disposable. I'm the same exact way. If I get you don't even have to say the word. If I get a whiff, if I get a feeling that that's how you feel about me, it's over. Like
It's over.
it's over. Like you won't hear from me again. I think
There's
it's the
people
scorp.
listening like, that's why he hasn't called me in 3 months.
There's that's the Scorpio in me. I'm just like, but I think it's really interesting because when we look at yoga in general, like people definitely have this idea of like, the detached yogi and etc. And I think that it's a very hard, sometimes people find it very hard to like walk that line of like, what does it mean to be detached? And I really love that in bhakti yoga there is this idea of what real renunciation looks like, or what real detachment looks like, right? It's not and Arjuna is going through this in Bhagavad Gita, right? It's not just like I'm giving up everything, I'm giving up all my duties, I'm not going to act, I'm just going to go to the mountain and, in the cave and be a, yogi and sit like this. And Krishna tells him no. And I was just reading in the purport of this verse that Doyal had put in the chat. And I won't read so much into it because it gets a little bit technical about the Sanskrit words that are being used, like detachment versus renunciation and etc. But I just wanted to talk about this nice principle because it came up here and it's something that I have always thought is really cool, but at the same time, it's an interesting speaking point. And there's this principle in Bhakti Yoga that everything can be used in Krishna's service, that all the material world and every person and everything can be used as paraphernalia for service to divinity, which is called Yukta Vairagyam, which is like super cool that Bhakti Yoga gives this like definition that it's like, wow, like everything can be spiritualized in a sense, this relationship, this mug, like whatever, like everything can be spiritualized in service to a higher power. And I think that's really cool. But then at the same time, it gets like a little bit of a slippery slope where it's just like, and now my, I don't know, my Rolls Royce is in Krishna service because I need it. That's why, and it's really about intention. And I've talked about this topic a lot because I think that people like to function on extremes, and we've spoken about this, that it's hard to live in the gray area. It's hard to live in the place where it's like, maybe I don't have all the answers right now. And so it's easier, I feel like, to be like, I'm either completely detached and I'm impersonal and you're cut out of my life and I'm going to the mountain and I'm just going to be like walls up, or I'm like totally on the other end where it's just like, I'm being a little bit, what's the word, flippant, just like, yeah, I could use everything, Christians, the whole thing, right, the whole 9 yards. And I really like, I found this in a purport, and it's something that I've thought about before and spoken about before, and I really like it. This is a purport from Srila Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 28. But anyway, he speaks about this yukta vairagya, and he defines it as one who is acting in Krishna consciousness under superior direction is called the yukta vairagya. And then he goes into Rupa Goswami, one of the saints of our lineage, one of the forefathers of our lineage. He goes into the definition of it. But I really like this, that there's a superior direction that I'm supposed to take in my dealings with the material world. It's not me just being whimsical and flippant about I'm detached or I'm not detached, or I'm attached or this. And I think it's really important, because like everything in our life, as a spiritual practitioner, should be, done as an offering. At the same time, though, it's like, how am I checking my boxes in a sense? Like, how is this serving the greater whole? How is this serving my community? How is this serving my teachers? Am I checking in with people? Like back in the day, villages, it always says it takes a village to raise a child, and it's like that's literally how it used to be. It's like people would all be involved in a family. And I think to our maybe like Western contemporary sentiments, that sounds like really like, no, I just want to be behind closed doors, I don't want anyone to bother me, I don't want anyone to look at me, I just want to do whatever I want. And it's such an interesting dichotomy, actually, of like, am I totally closed off from the world, or am I totally involved in everything, or am I somewhere in the middle where I'm like taking direction and I'm always asking questions? It's a really interesting and difficult place to be. I also love the word flippant, Jeffrey. It's one of my favorite
Yeah.
words.
Also, I mean, people think that, like, oh well, it takes a village. Everybody knows that, and then everybody thinks, oh, but I'm minding my own business now. Actually, we're not cut off. We're just busy minding somebody else's business. The village has gotten bigger. Like the social media village got way big because we still in everybody's business. We're experts on everything, and we have the commentary to prove it. We gonna put it out there. So it's still taking the same village. Just our village has expanded.
Within a big village. I was thinking, thank you guys so much for sharing all of your what your insights and realizations are. Um, I was, in terms of Yukta Vairagya and what you were sharing, Achita Gopi, about um, not dismissing things so easily. And I was thinking of renunciation, like devotional renunciation, because I've heard, I love quoting the phrase that bhakti is so much less about renunciation and more about dedication. And that renunciation in a devotional sense is not just that, it's not that things don't matter, it's that things don't belong to me. And so there's a big difference. Things don't matter means like you're not important, this isn't important, this is disposable, etc. As opposed to things don't belong to me, but they still can have extraordinary value. And not only if I recognize that things don't belong to me, but that they actually have a purpose, like everything has a dharma. Everything has a purpose and has been meant to use for higher purpose, then things become extraordinarily important. I just don't think it belongs to me. I just don't think I have a sense of control over it and how it functions. It's one of my David Rico, an author on relationships. He has this book, the five, no, the how to be an adult in relationships. He wrote that book and he has the 5 A's of relationships. And one of the most hardest is allowing somebody to be who they are, be different than what you wanted them to be. For parents to allow their kids to grow into their own person rather than think they need to be who I want them to be, to allow my partner to be their own person rather than who I think they need to be in relationship to me. Um, And so to allow people to be their own person, to love them, Judah's leaning in here, to love them for who they are. And when it doesn't go exactly according to my plan or no longer serves my interests, I don't just dismiss it, but I realize that it's not actually like I'm not the center of this equation, and we're both meant to be serving a common center, and that actually becomes like real renunciation, where it's like, because it's easy to cut things out of your life. God knows I know that. Are listening to this and you've been cut out of my life, I still love you. Um, I don't cut people out of my life, but I like it's easy for me. Like there was like a meme. What was Jonathan from Queer Eye? He's the groomer, and it was like, there was a meme. It was like the caption was, "You can't just cut people out of your life." And it was me, and he was like cutting hair like really close with the snip, and it was like snip, you know. And so whether it's people or things, like I can be like an all or nothing person, like cutting something out of my life, and it's like that in one sense is easier than learning to engage with it on a middle ground. It's like, okay, something belongs to me. It's mine. I own it. I control it. It needs to be exactly the way I see it and serve my needs. Or something doesn't belong to me. It's useless. It's disposable. Like, get it out of here, cut it out. But to find that middle ground where this doesn't belong to me, it still has extraordinary value. I must honor it, find a way to engage with it without thinking it needs to serve me, but serve a higher purpose. Like, that's real tough renunciation. And therefore, the yukta vairagya that you're saying, Kishore, like engaging things in a mood of renunciation, like that's actually the hardest thing. To have things and know that they're not mine, to have relationships and know that people don't belong to me, that's real servant mentality. And that's hard. And that is purification of the ego on a deep level.
So what you're saying to me is these 5 A's, and the hardest one being allowing, is essentially true renunciation is to perform your duty without being detached to the results, O Arjuna. Like, it's like all these things, and I'm like, I know you said it, Lord. I hear it. I get it. Fine. Bye. But it's like, of course, that's the hardest thing. And that's the one thing that the Supreme Person is doing. He's doing his duty and being detached from the result with all of us. It's like, here, now go, spirit souls. I allow you to do your thing. And then we all go off and do a million other things other than the one thing he wants, which is just engage with me. It's the whole reason he, like, Srimad Bhagavatam says the Lord, third canto, glances over and reawakens all the jivas. But why? He wanted to have relationships. And we're like, great, bye. And he keeps doing it. And I've always said, I'm like, that's love. That's love. Because to give everybody else the wherewithal to completely forget me, and then they do, and then I still show up because I'm the other person. Once you forget me, I'm like, I forgot you first already. I forgot you long ago. And Krishna doesn't do that. He keeps trying, keeps inserting himself, keeps finding sneaky ways to make his way in. Even if you're thinking, well, there is no God. And he's like, great, I'll give you every evidence you could ever need.
I wrote a book a while ago about relationships, and it was the idea of relationships designed to make us not necessarily happy, but holy, in the sense of like as a crucible for spiritual churning. And the idea of being able to love another person without the reciprocation that we think we deserve necessarily gives us a glimpse of what it's like for God to love every living being and for us to continuously walk away. And we come face to face like, okay, that's not me. I don't, and sometimes we just have to own, I don't have that strength. That's not me. Like, I'm not in a place where I can love unconditionally, but we get a glimpse of it, and we understand what that divine love looks like. And I think so much of spiritual life is being able to where self-care becomes such, I know it's like a word that can be charged sometimes of what that means. And sometimes we think self-care is rose petals and bubble baths, or self-care means this or that. But like actually genuine, nourishing spiritual self investment so that I can actually go out into the world and love. How am I connecting myself to the source of love so that I can love? If I'm disconnected from that source of love, it's too tall an order for me to just, then that's when it turns into abuse. That's when it turns into manipulation. That's when it turns into being a doormat, because I'm not connected to the source of love. I just honestly don't have the strength. But that idea of like relationship in this world do give us a glimpse of the divine relationship that Krishna has with each of us, where it's just like, I'm not going away.
Mm.
I'm not going away.
Just to play devil's advocate, because I like doing it. Yes, and I think it's really important to understand that, like, this just came up in my mind that, like, yesterday we were talking about relationship with divinity, with Krishna, and that being the most important relationship. And sometimes, like, I really think, like, when I'm angry or when I'm frustrated or when I'm not getting what I want or like whatever it is, right? I'll try to take it out on other people, the mind. But really, it's about me and my relationship with God. Like, it's really about something unresolved there, or some frustration, or me not surrendering enough, or something is going on there. And I really think, that, like, people need a space to be held while going through all of that stuff, because the tendency is that if someone is frustrated or angry or whatever, and well, let's just say they're frustrated and angry, the first thing we're going to think is like they're irritable, like what's going on with them, or like whatever. That's level one. Next level is if they're frustrated and angry at me, it's being directed at me, then what's your problem? Like whatever. And it just turns into a conflict, right? But the more and more I think about it, the more and more I'm just like, when people are going through it, or when people are frustrated or angry or sad or whatever it is, it's just like them going through whatever ups and downs they're going through with their relationship with divinity. And like, as a community, as a spiritual community, it's like, how can we hold space for people when they're going through that, because it's like, that's, for me, that's like one of the most important things. It's like, when you're going through your dark night of the soul, when you're going through your stuff, when you're going through your daily battles, it's like, how can we hold each other and help each other? And like you're saying, they all like take ourselves out of the center, thinking that like everything is about me. Oh, that they have some face on today, it must be about me. It must be about me. It's like, it's not about me. That everyone's going through their stuff. And it's like, I think that the more we can each other hold that space, for people, it's like, I feel like that would be crazy. That would be transformative if we're able to do that for people.
Loving it, holding space. We gotta wrap it up here. We're at time. Kimberly, you got takeaways for us?
Yes. My takeaway is that detachment doesn't mean that people and our connections are disposable. Things matter and have value, but they don't belong to us. And we can learn to engage with the things in service to a higher power.
Beautiful. What's something you're walking away with, Achyuta?
Engaging the things in service under supervision. I'm really good at justifying anything. I can justify anything. And so I always have to like check myself, like, now hold on now. Are we just getting into like the rhythm of like justification, or are you actually using this in the service? So yeah, it's
Mm.
the supervision part.
What's something you're walking away with, Kishore?
Just this word disposable is very strong in my mind. Not treating people or things or the planet, Mother Nature, as disposable, seeing the inherent value in every single being, and every single thing. Yeah. And treating it as such.
Yeah, for me, a similar thread of just the idea that people and things matter. It may, even if it feels like it doesn't affect or directly impact me personally. Like I could be okay without it. Like it matters to somebody. It matters to to supreme divinity. Like every person, everything has a valuable connection to source. And so for me to honor that and recognize that and not be so flippant as the word of the day was. So thank you guys so much. Really, really grateful. We will see you again mañana. Very appreciative to all you guys. Please, please, please be well. Take care. Tell somebody that you love them. And we'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.